All right, better late than never. I'm always like the last person to put these out, but these are some of my favorite games that I played throughout 2024. These are my personal picks. Just consider them recommendations, things that really stuck with me. It was an interesting year for me. I didn't play as much as I usually do. I actually missed some of the bigger games because I was playing or working on other things. So this list might actually have some glaring omissions of some of the big games of the year, I'll admit. But I played what I played. I saw a lot, covering a lot of things for Game Ranks. But here, it's the things that stuck with me the most. The games I remember a couple of months later, because I do see so many games. The stuff that's stuck in my head. I got like 10 or so games, kind of a roundup list. So getting started with number 10, it's a left field pick, but Rise of the Ronin. So it was kind of a toss up between this and Stellar Blade for these kind of like weird games that stuck with me. Rise of the Ronin is interesting. You wouldn't expect it, right? Because it looks like shit. Graphically, it's not the greatest. It also, the story kind of has some cool ideas, but isn't really too satisfying in terms of like how it plays out. And yet, it stuck with me. I played the hell out of this. I love this open world. For me, it was kind of like turn off your brain type game. Like it's got Souls-like elements like their previous games like Neo, yes, but it's a little bit more accessible. You know, sometimes I don't want to have my ass beat in an incredibly challenging game. And this game has its moments, but it was just a lot of fun. The gore, the chaos of it all, the way you could build out your character, the character creator, I really liked all that, and how they kind of give you like a character, a side character that is essentially your opposite. You create them as well, and you see them throughout the adventure. Cool ideas, but ultimately for me, it was just kind of like sneaking around and killing dudes. The game is very like open world busy work type of thing. The 3 different zones you go to aren't like the most amazing things in terms of like incentivizing exploration. And yet, I don't know. I think it was just the combat being so tight and me really liking the setting itself, like this kind of East meets West, like time period specifically in Japan that I just found cool. And I just kept going back to it. Again, it's a very weird pick for me because it is honestly like a 7 out of 10 game. But like I often say, sometimes in life, that's all you need is a 7 out of 10 game to kick back and have some fun. And again, this one just stuck with me. Next over at number 9, Oni for PlayStation 2. No, I'm just kidding. Number 9 is Frostpunk 2. This is another one, interesting one, but for me, it's really hours spent, time played, essentially. I stuck with this one for a while. I'm a huge fan of the original Frostpunk, and I'll be totally honest, I like the first Frostpunk way more. That being said, I still found Frostpunk 2 really interesting. It tickled my brain. It scratched that itch that I was looking for. But the developers had big balls with this one because they made a completely different game from the first Frostpunk. So yes, in some ways, there are a lot of trade-offs. There are some things and like how you build out your city and how customizable it is, I don't really love. But what I really liked here was just how essentially your city grew out and how you became this real scar on the land and the scrapping for resources and how stressful the game got managing multiple cities and like little satellite cities and bouncing around back and forth, and how well the game performed, like you jumping between multiple cities you're building out, coupled with the political intrigue and the fact that you have to garner up votes and stuff like that, added a different layer or like really a different subsection to some of the difficult decision makings from the first Frostpunk. I was just hooked. I don't think it has the legs of the first one for me personally. Like I'm not necessarily itching to run back for expansions or anything like that, like I was with the first game, but still, I just really, really enjoyed my time with Frostpunk 2. I looked at the first Frostpunk like perfection. What do you do again? Like how do you improve on that? And they didn't. They sidestepped and tried something different, and it made me think. And for that, I'm grateful. Now, next over at number 8, the Silent Hill 2 remake. I was one of the people that was pretty skeptical. I was worried. Not necessarily Bloober, because I actually like some of the Bloober Team's games, the developer, but just the fact that I feel like Silent Hill 2 was such a specific vibe, a specific atmosphere. You know, sometimes like Japanese development from that time period, feels like lightning in a bottle. I don't know how people can like recapture that, but somehow I think Bloober Team did a really good job here, presentation-wise, music-wise, atmospherically. It just feels like a good representation, a modern representation of Silent Hill 2. Still love the original. I still think the original has its own special feel that is still very unique, but for people to get into Silent Hill, I think this is a good thing. So I definitely recommend it. They didn't screw it up. They didn't like misunderstand the point of the original game, the feel of the original game. I just think that from a remake, I actually really saw why it's justified. Like, because yes, it takes it very sacredly. It doesn't screw things up, but where it adds is in performances. And I actually think the performances of some of these characters really kind of elevated the adventure and elevated the story. Specifically, James in particular, just a little bit more of an interesting lead here. Just the way he emotes, the way he speaks, of the same dialogue, but how it's done now just gives you a little bit more to chew into and makes you care a little bit more. And that's all I could really ask for here. Next, over at number 7, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I love this game. This is an excellent Metroidvania that feels like a good throwback to very, very classic Prince of Persia. I'm talking before Sands of Time. And I struggled with this one because, like, I just want more games like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time and Warrior Within and everything that came out after that, right? But if we're not getting that, I think this is absolutely the next best thing, because this is tightly designed top to bottom, right? Cool bosses, pretty interesting story, somewhat, but really cool bosses, really tight, engaging, and shockingly challenging combat, really great puzzles and platforming and environment. Like, you're using time powers, you're jumping over traps, you're wall running, you're doing all the Prince of Persia things here, and in just such a nice, tightly refined, honed way. This is just like a well-built, thrilling, fun game, top to bottom. I put out a video back when this released, and that was very early in 2024, and it stuck with me. And that for me makes a game on my Game of the Year list. Next, over at number 6 is Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. This is like, and I'm repeating myself from my video, but it's a video game, a good old-fashioned video game. It's got a cool, silly, not super long, but incredibly entertaining campaign and some cool co-op multiplayer. I found it just to be a good package. I got everything I wanted out of it. I like the original Space Marine game. I don't know a lot about Warhammer, but I played this. I love this adventure, and this time around, like, it felt really well realized, all the Warhammer stuff, the art style, the design of everything in this world, and seeing it like rendered in 4K beautifully, like right in my eyeballs. Like, I really started to be like, oh, Warhammer is fucking sick. I need to get more into this. And this kind of serves as like a gateway drug into that stuff. I really finally saw the appeal of Warhammer. And I've heard from a lot of people, like, this has gotten people into that. So I think it deserves commendation for that alone. But also, I just had a good time jumping in with the co-op and just blasting monsters. This is just a good, chunky, solid, entertaining third-person shooter. And I like those very much. I am predisposed to enjoying those types of things, and Space Marine 2 definitely delivered. Next up is Half-Life with a car, or what I would call Pacific Drive. Pacific Drive is absolutely awesome. It's not for everyone, and it's, from a smaller studio, so you can feel things here and there, but I found it to be really compelling and really challenging. This is a kind of survival game where you're in zones. You essentially go on runs into a kind of stalker anomaly zone, right? And all these things and all the elements are trying to kill you, irradiate you, teleport you, whatever. And it's just you and your car. Your car starts out as a piece of shit, but as you continue to scrounge and play and go back to base and craft, you turn it into like an actual useful, powerful tool. And it just really, really is a satisfying loop. There is a story there, and it is very cool, but it's just like that moment-to-moment adventuring, the challenge, the fear, the adversity that like the game really puts up against you is really cool. The atmosphere is unmatched. The driving, just like being in the car at night. One of your headlights is flickering, your windshield wipers are going, the sound design, all of that. As a person who just likes to drive a lot, it really felt like a good car adventure. Even though it's not open world, it is very zone and run based, they still nailed that feel. And I love it for that. Now, at number 4, I said I was predisposed to just like chunky old classic third-person shooters where you run around as a guy, and Helldivers 2 is one of those. Man, I loved Helldivers 2. Now, I am not, because I have to play games and move on to the next thing, I played Helldivers 2 a lot for like the first month, and then I've jumped in a little bit here and there. But I haven't really been deep in the whole like community and people being pissed off about balancing and monetization and all that stuff, right? So I'm still more casual than I think the hardcore average Helldivers 2 person, but I think it doesn't matter because I put a lot of hours into it and I had a shit ton of fun playing with my friends. Yes, even if it was for that first month or so, it was a lot of hours. And I just look back absolutely fondly because the game is a challenging third person co-op shooter, right? But also it's like you know, you're challenged, but also you're laughing and having fun the whole time. The physics, the way the characters get blasted around, the friendly fire, calling an ordnance, accidentally dropping a nuke on your friend's head, seeing their body go flying, or you diving off a cliff because you can, you know, it just made for so many great hilarious moments. Then actual satisfying gunplay, great enemy and monster design, swarms of these things, and the fact that, you know, it's very much a love letter to Starship Troopers, something I really, really enjoy for many, many years. Here, it's got that feel. It's got that tongue-in-cheek humor, but it had the gameplay chops to back it up. Interesting weapons, like I said, all that stuff just really, really worked for me. I look at my time with Helldivers 2 back like very, very fondly, and I'm looking forward to finding some time to jump back in. Next, over at number 3, recency bias. I don't care. This game is really good, even better than I expected. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This retroactively somehow made me more of an Indiana Jones fan. I am a big George Lucas Spielberg guy as much as the next person, but I was never like mega hardcore about Indiana Jones. I love them, sure, but they're not like my life or anything. But after playing this game, I was like, okay, yep, no, I love the hell out of Indiana Jones. And I subsequently went back and watched all 3 movies. It's just so interesting how well the gameplay concepts work, right? Like, it's like a baby, simple thief, kind of Dishonored mixed with Chronicles of Riddick fisticuffs. And, you know, it's just, I also just like was not really into the first person perspective, but jumping in, it really works. Everything here is really, really well done, from the look, the character performances, Indy's new sidekick Gina, to the performance of Indiana Jones, Troy Baker. He's not like a one-to-one impersonation, but he nails the cadences and everything so well that you just kind of melt into it and you believe it very quickly. It's just a good, straightforward Indiana Jones adventure, like the ones we used to get in video games back in the day. I miss that. I miss the Fate of Atlantis, Infernal Machine, Emperor's Tomb, Staff of Kings, like shit like that, right? So this really feels like the next generation of that because it has the technology and the budget to really make it feel like an Indiana Jones thing, but also still be video gamey and fun at the same time. I love shooting and punching dudes and watching cool cutscenes and going on adventures in video games more than anything. And Indiana Jones, for me this year, was the game that delivered that the most. Now down at number 2, Astro Bot. Now I know Astro Bot's a predictable one. It is like the golden child. I'm pretty sure it won the Game of the Year at like the Game Awards this year, but like it warranted, in my opinion. I had so much fun with this game. It is, yes, part a nostalgia play, and I don't care. I think the way it brought back these characters and how it highlighted and celebrated PlayStation's legacy, you know, of like 30 years of it with some deep cuts too, just brought me joy. It made me smile. It made me have fun. And I'm like emphasizing those words because that is always what I do here. My work on Game Ranks and here on this channel is that these things are fun. We like video games. We play them because we like them. We have fun with them. If one isn't fun, we don't make it our life to hate it. We move on and find something else more fun. That Astro Bot is just a good platformer in 2024. It feels like a miracle, right? Because platformers are like, you know, the indie scene, there's some good ones, but like platforming is not this big mainstream thing like it used to be. Yet we have a really good, well-made one here, well-crafted, you know, tight levels, great, you know, gameplay mechanics that actually encourage speed running. It's all really tight. The feedback is great. The sound design, the music is great. The music, man, when Astrobot says, "I am Astrobot," like when it hits, like I felt that. I've seen some interesting, and not even really interesting, but I've seen some comments about like how Astro Bot is just ripping off the Mario games, which just to me is something I disagree with so hard because that doesn't make any, it's just because it's a platformer. It's just like a genre thing and people are just doing console war stuff. I don't know, because again, like if it's just this genre argument, it's like, oh, looking at Call of Duty and being like, yeah, but they ripped off Battlefield. It's just a rip off of Battlefield. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think Astro Bot is special on its own. I think you can say any platformer borrowed from another platformer, just like you can say any third person action adventure game or any sports game or any game borrowed from another game of that same genre. Astro Bot doesn't have like a lot of story. Astro Bot himself, there's not much to him. He's not the most memorable thing. This game it dangerously toes the line of just coming off like a big commercial for PlayStation. Yeah, and yet somehow it rises above that. And again, it just made me smile so much. I just had a lot of fun. And also, it gets a lot of credit for taking over my household, right? Like just detaching it from just me for a second, like, you know, hearing all my friends loving it in my house, my wife also playing it and loving it, and just us sharing those experiences, hearing about people I know, like playing it with their kids and stuff. That I don't know, that's a video game win. It can be that simple sometimes. But now down at number 1, here's a big shock for some of you guys. It is Batman Arkham Shadow. Yes, the VR Batman Arkham game, exclusive right now for Quest 3, of all things, is one of my favorite things I've played this year. This doesn't come too out of left field for me if you've been watching my videos for a while. Half-Life Alyx, the year that was released, that was my number 1 game of the year pick. I love VR. I don't have enough time to always play all the VR games because I'm covering all like normal mainstream games, but when they hit for me, they really hit. And Batman Arkham really does. Not because it's a VR game, really, but because it's another good Batman Arkham game. We've been wanting this for a while. It was a year of a lot of upsets, right? Sony's massive flop with Concord, Rocksteady and Warner Brothers' massive flop with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Yet here we have a cool, good adventure, a new Arkham thing, giving us what we want, a Batman story in this world with those Batman villains and characters that we've seen throughout the Arkham games. You know, that, and it actually tries to tell something interesting. It's a cool story. It's actually a good little pickup story between and like after Batman Arkham Origins and before Arkham Asylum. You get more context for some of the villains and characters. They actually try and do a little something with Batman's character. And you have Roger Craig Smith as Batman, who is incredible. I am such a fan of that guy. I think he's a really good fit for like this younger like Batman, and it feels like you can, okay, like he's the younger, more brash, more aggressive Batman that will eventually grow up into super god Kevin Conroy Arkham Batman, right? Like it just fits, it feels natural, and the game is so much fun to play. I think the way they translated all of the Arkham gameplay elements to VR is incredible. How it all feels intuitive and natural and not awkward and not janky for the most part. There's always those little VR things here and there. But the first time you perch up on a gargoyle and you turn on Predator vision and you see like stupid idiot guards everywhere and you're like, yes, I have all these tools to take them out. That is such a satisfying feeling. The first time you literally go like that and cape swipe a dude and then he's stunned and then you punch the shit out of him like this. It's such a good feeling. They really figured out how to translate this gameplay over so well and also tell a good story in the process. So I gotta commend Camouflage, the studio, for doing this, for making me so happy as a diehard Batman weirdo and a fan of the Batman Arkham games. So I know either accessibility-wise or just taste, VR isn't for everybody, but for me, Batman Arkham Shadow is the most fun I had this year, and it is my game of the year. Some runner-ups and stuff, some things that didn't make the list. Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden had some really, really interesting ideas. Also, it's still in early access, so I'm not totally counting it, but Rogue Prince of Persia is also really good. Just a good year for Prince of Persia. Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered is a great repackaging of those original games, and I had a lot of fun revisiting the world of Nosgoth, like 100%, dude. There's other things this year that I played that like I want to revisit later, like early access stuff, like No Rest for the Wicked. I had some problems with that, but I'm excited to see how they cook and how they kind of develop it up next year. But like, really, those are the main things. And again, there are a lot of omissions, right? Because I will admit, this year, I didn't get around to playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. which feels insane for me. I love Final Fantasy. I also didn't play Dragon's Dogma 2. There were some big ones that I missed this year because I prioritized just checking out some games I wanted to in the moment, and then also like coverage things with Game Ranks. So yeah, you can only play so much in a year, right? Then there's other things. There's a lot of games where I do like first impressions of, like Metaphor Refantasio. I did some lengthy, pretty deep first impressions of a good chunk of that game for the Before You Buy for Game Ranks, but I didn't ultimately finish it in time, so I can tell it's really good, but I can't include it on my list, you know? Those are my picks. Hopefully, maybe just take this as a little bit of a recommendation or something if you haven't checked out some of these games. At this point, if you're watching, you know my tastes and stuff like that. But some of you are probably also just going to comment and be like, how much do they pay you? Or like, you like this game and I hate you. This game sucks. But I'm going to ignore those people. So yeah, really, I just want to know your Game of the Year list. Look, not everybody has a top 10 for 2024. Some people may only have a top 5 or a top 3 or a top 1, whatever. I want to know your list. I shared mine, so let me know yours. I think there's some good conversation to be had here. Let's talk about this stuff. Thank you if you've listened to me this long. 2025, we're ramping it up. I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of shit to talk about, so buckle up, dude. But thank you guys for being here. Clicking the like button helps me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Share this one with your friends or something, because these are my favorite to make. But that's it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what games you're playing. But I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me.